everybody, this is Sherry with CPR, Craft, Pray, Repeat. And I'm here today to show you how to make a midnight sky with embossing powders. Now I started with my Versamark ink pad and I used a dark color for my cardstock background because, I figured if a piece of it or a little bit of it didn't cover, the dark color would help disguise that in lieu of a stark white background. Now, I ended up having to go over this several times, and that was my fault. It had nothing to do with the technique. I needed to re-ink my embossing pad. So, that's why it was dry and it wasn't covering all the spots. So what I did was I took 3 different kinds of regular embossing powder, one being my Recollections black fine detail embossing powder, and then 2 that were gifted to me from Lisa, who is Charlisa's Crafty Corner, and she sent me blue Tencel opaque and marine Tencel embossing powder. And then I added a Stampendous Frantage aged gold embossing powder, and I'm just heating it with my heat gun. And if you notice, the gold's not really popping yet, but when I go and I heat from underneath, the gold just pops open like a snowflake. It just burst open. It was so pretty. And so what I'm going to do the next time I do this, instead of mixing the Frantage in with the embossing powders, I'm going to do the embossing powders separately, and then because I'm going to heat from underneath for the Frantage, I can just drop it on in little places where I want it to be, and it'll stay. And it won't blow away because I'm heating from underneath instead of directly right on top of it. And I apologize, I'm trying to get this where you all can see, but it's directly under my camera and I didn't want to melt my camera. It was like, I was trying so hard. But then I realized I ran the chance of like melting my entire camera with the heat from that heat gun. So I got the best I could there toward the corner so that I wasn't putting direct heat on my camera. And so I just kept heating it up until I had it completely evenly coated, and I had to keep going back in, adding more Versamark, and then adding more of the my mixture. But if, like I said, if my embossing pad had been wet and moist and it would have, completely saturated the paper, I probably would have only had to done it once. But, and I still haven't re-inked my embossing pad yet. So I'm using a Cottage Cut Santa and Reindeer Friends die, and I'm just taking my red, running it through, and then I try to be like frugal here and just run a little teeny strip of white, and I'm like, oh, how's it gonna fit? How's it gonna fit? Well, it's not gonna fit. So finally I give up. Just quit being a cheapskate and throw a piece of white on top of there. Get that all done, and then I pull out my sticky board so that I can, because I didn't want to run a black piece through, so I just used the white piece and colored it black with a Sharpie marker. You can use your Copics if you want to, but I had that in a basket here next to me. You'd be surprised how much we use Sharpie markers in this family. And then, because of the way Santa was sitting, I didn't want to ink it because I knew I wouldn't be able to get into the inside parts without possibly smudging him up with ink. So I used chalk, some old Stampin' Up! Chalks, and I've really been enjoying that. And I don't even know if they make chalks anymore. And I bought something called pastels thinking those were chalks. They're not. But I'm working on it. I'm trying to learn how to get better with it. And if I eventually ever make it there, I'll share it with you. But see, I was able to take that Q-tip and go right at the bottom of the base of that one piece where there was a division. That was where the fur on Santa's hat and the fur on Santa's jacket meet. And had I been inking, I never would have been able to do that. So I'm just laying down my pieces, trying to make sure I know where everything goes before I start gluing, and get everything sorted out. Now I'm grabbing my trusty old art glitter glue, and I am going to town, putting him together. Now, I didn't do the reindeer because I didn't think I would have enough space, and I didn't want it to look too crowded, but I love the idea of doing it as a card for Christmas with that beautiful background. See, there's the piece I was able to put the gray between the two pieces where it had the line already cut for me. And with inks, I'd have never been able to do that. And so I'm going ahead and putting my black belt on. But I think doing Santa and the reindeer with that background for a card next year for Christmas would just be incredible. And I saw a lady do a technique. Her first name is Vicky. I cannot pronounce her last name. I will try to find the video and I will link it, because she had something that was already pre-made that did the background. I had to kind of wing mine. So I will try to find her video and put it at the bottom or in the description box for you, because, you know, like I said, I didn't have what she had, but I had stuff that I could make something pretty close, so that's what I did. And I think mine turned out probably just as good as hers, except, you know, we just had different things we were working with. You know, use what you got, folks, use what you got. And even if it hadn't been, you know, perfect, it still would have been close enough, because I think it looked pretty darn good. And there I am, just gluing on Santa's beard, and he is done. I absolutely love my Cottage Cuts dies, guys. You know that. I'm a Cottage Cuts junkie. And so there I'm just putting some Clear Star Jelly Roll on his boots to give it a little shine there. And because the tag is blue and it's been heated a lot, it's warped, so I wanted to put a heavy background for it to attach to. And then I put it cockeyed, and then I messed it up, and I was not going to redo the front of that tag. So I decided I'd put it back down, and I'd trim off anything that was hanging over. I was like, ain't a happening, Bucky. No. So I just trim that off and get it ready, and then I go get ready to put my hole in the top for the ribbon to go through. And this is actually the tag that's in my niece's Christmas tag wrapping station. I did a video on it the other day, and I'll link it as well in the description. And here is just a piece of white cardstock that I glitter blasted, and I cut myself to make my own little snowbank. And I ended up making it way wider than I wanted, so you'll see I don't put it all the way on the bottom, and I will go in and cut off a bunch of it. But I just needed enough to have some place for Santa to sit that would ground him, so that he didn't look like he was floating in space. And with that background, he would look like he was floating in space for sure. And I just lift him up a little bit, not anything, you know, high up, just enough to bring him up off the background. And just, you know, kind of, I want him to stand out too, but the star of the show is the background. I just think it looks gorgeous. And I have another idea for another mixture, and I'm going to put purple in with it. And I just used that that die set there because I needed the word joy, and cut it out of gold cardstock and glue it down, and my tag is done. But I want to do one that looks like the the northern lights, so I'm going to add purple and stuff to it. I think it'll be really pretty. I'll show it to you when I get it done. Alright guys, remember to practice your CPR, craft, pray, repeat. Thanks for visiting me today and happy crafting. Bye!